Welcome back to the Mesozoic Media Park. Last time we focused on building the carnivores enclosure. This time I want us to focus on Dinosauria, done by the amazing Deadsound. Now I want to focus on two episodes, the first one being the old buck and the second one being a surprise. Why is it a surprise? I don't know. It's a surprise. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoy the video. Okay, so yeah, first I want to do old buck. It's a fairly simple enclosure. That's one of the biggest reasons why we're doing multiple enclosures for this, because, otherwise it'd be a very short episode. And nobody, and I mean nobody, likes a short episode, at least from my experience. So what I want to do is I want to make an enclosure that's, in a way, kind of feels like a rhino style enclosure, but also, a type of enclosure that you would see elephants or rhinos in a realistic zoo. That's what I want from this enclosure. So what I need to do is build my own fences that are probably a little bit more of the wood variety. Maybe like this, perhaps? I don't know if I like that look. I mean, I've seen a lot of zoos that have this style. Or do I want something like, well, that's a bit too tall. Maybe kind of like this. And what I'll do is I'll separate the styracosaurs with water. Like we'll put deep water, because in the episode there is quite a bit of water all over the place. So, having that certainly makes sense. Whoops. Except I don't think I like that fence. I'm not finding any fences that I'm liking. And I don't want to build one because every time I try to build fences, they never look good. I mean, I guess I could probably, I don't know. Maybe this will work. We'll try it. I'll try it out. Well, I don't know. I don't think I like it. It might be better off with this, honestly. I mean, something like this kind of fits Deadsound style anyway, so let's just do it. Actually, what I'll do first is I'll place the water in so that I know what I'm doing. Now, based off of like an image like this, again, there's a lot of water, but I don't necessarily want this enclosure to be taken, like, I don't want too much of this enclosure to be water. So I guess we'll do something similar to this. Yeah, like it's a little bit of a river system that kind of moves through. So maybe something like that would suffice. Probably even dial it back a little bit. There's also, of course, there's a hill that old buck stands on. I want that to be kind of like a focal point right there. And I'll dress it up with some trees and some extra vegetation. But I'm thinking it'll be something that looks a little bit similar to this. Yeah, with all of the water like that. Then you'll have a fence go around here, and since it's deep water, hypothetically speaking, these styracosaurs should not be able to swim. Or, well, we should be able to keep them at bay. Kind of like that. We'll only have a few styracosaurs so that it's not like too cramped of a space. Okay, so let's go ahead and start placing in our viewing. All right, my thought is that you would get a little bit of a viewing area that looks like that, and then the rest of it would be walled off. Because a lot of zoos, you don't always have like a ton of viewing. Sometimes you just have like a little sliver where you get to see the animals, and this will be that sliver because you can see the hill in the background, which is ultimately like, again, meant to be the focal point. And I've seen many rhino exhibits that have this method where it's like just water is separating you from the actual animal. And I think it's a pretty fine method to have for ceratopsians, really. They're, rhino-like. Obviously, they're not related to rhinos, but they're just, in terms of like general appearance, they're kind of similar to rhinos, and that's only loosely. Okay, so that's pretty cool. I kind of like it. I could probably add a little bit more water as well, and then we can get some vegetation in here. Dress it up a little bit, make it look presentable. A little bit like that, and then I can have the path go along here. And then you really get to see, like, you really get to look into that enclosure. That's pretty cool, actually, especially with the water like that. Okay, so, and then there's like a few other things I could probably add just to try to spice it up a little bit, dress it up a little bit. Like my favorite, that being the rocks. I like rocks. If we had some rocks here and there, I want to make like some spots where it looks like they come down to drink quite frequently. And obviously, a very important thing that we need to add here is the tree. There's a very pretty tree in this animated short, and there's one type of tree that I think would fit it quite well. Oh, that's so tiny. Oh, that's still so tiny. That's better. It's better. Obviously I don't think it's a cherry blossom in the thing, but at the very least, it looks fairly pink in the short. So I think it's I think it's fair to include something like that. And again, it's a nice kind of focal point. Look in, it's like, oh my gosh, look at that beautiful tree up there. Try to wear it down a little bit, make it look like the animals use, like they walk up here quite a bit and walk all over the place. Get rid of some of this grass, you know? Okay, so yeah, that's the old buck's tree. Down here is where like all of the styracosaurs did their dominance fights in the short film, which by the way, if you haven't seen the short film, I highly recommend it. And while you're at it, check out the rest of Deadsound's work. Dinosauria in general and Sauria, if you ask me, are both like really phenomenal projects that certainly do deserve a lot of recognition. So if you haven't watched them yet, then again, I highly recommend checking them out. I'll put some trees here too, some sparse trees, you know, make it seem like they have some shade and stuff like that, which, you know, animals like shade. That's pretty cool. I like it. Okay. So yeah, I'll get old buck in there along with some like a couple other styracosaurs, and then we'll start on the second enclosure, which might be a little bit more tricky if we decide to do what I'm thinking about doing. The goal here is to try to make it look like old buck. Now, old buck and the other styracosaurs has like, you know, a base coloration of more grayish, blackish, which it looks like that's the closest we'll get right there. They do have some highlights of whites and some reds, which honestly, this might be the closest that we can get right here. And that's not too terribly bad. It's actually not too far off. At the very least, you could probably tell what it's meant to represent. We'll apply that to both the males and the females. All right. So yeah, that's probably the best we can do. That's as close as we can get to Deadsound styracosaurs. Now the old buck, he's fighting another male, so we can have like 2 males in here and we'll have 2 females. Okay, well, while they're being dropped off into their enclosure, I might as well reveal what the second enclosure will be. It is gonna be, drum roll please, our frozen past. That's right, we're going to be tackling Nanoxaurus, even though Nanoxaurus is not in this game. But you know what it is in this game? Eutyrannus. It is a Tyrannosauroid that has feathers, so you know, it might be kind of close. But my problem is, my dilemma right now is I don't know. Gosh, those are loud. But see, right now, my problem is that I don't know how I want to do this, this one. My mind immediately went to like doing an indoors enclosure. And that actually might still be what I'm going to do because I don't know, since it's snowy, and the reason why I chose a map like this is because we get snow. Like I have the option to place down snow, which is again one of the reasons why I chose this map, or a map like this anyway. Now, what I kind of want to do is make this look kind of like a polar bear exhibit, because you know, Nanoxaurus translates to polar bear lizard, and again, this is not Nanoxaurus, this is Eutyrannus, but it's the best that we can do right now. I found this really cool image of the polar bear, like it's called Polar Bear Passage, in the Kansas City Zoo, thinking, why don't we do something like that? I mean, something inspired by that. I like the idea of having the Eutyrannus kind of like in a little bit of a pit that you're looking down into. So maybe we can build the thing up from there. And again, and we might try to make it indoors so that it, you know, again, it seems like you can, you know, the temperature is controlled. Kind of like that, I guess. We don't need we don't need a ton of space. I guess a little bit like that. And then you can have a fence that you look into. Like, let's see here. The majority of this enclosure that I'm looking at is made up of a lot of rocks, you know, very classic. So we could probably utilize said rocks to make a pretty cool entrance. We could put the fence right about here, I think. And then these rocks, they'll act as the border, like that. I can make it look like you're basically looking into a cave, really, with a lot of rocks all over the place. Okay, and then when there's also some awnings, I guess. Can I do like a convincing awning for this? Or do I have to like look for something else as an alternative? Maybe we could do this right here. And I can just go across like that. Oops. And then also something I think is pretty cool is that they do have like some wood, some like logs as supports, I guess. And we can use that. There we go. Kind of like that. I kind of like the way that this is going. Now, can I like put down like I can't remember. Is there glass that you can actually look through? No, doesn't look like it. So instead, I'm just going to do a regular run-of-the-mill fence. In fact, I could probably just do my own fence. We could do like a chain link fence. Yeah, you can look through it. We'll allow it. There you go. You can look through the chain link fence like that, I guess. You can also have a path right here. Okay, and then I changed my mind about having the having a roof on top of it, because then I remembered that it would get really dark in here. So instead, we're just gonna have it be an open enclosure, and you'll just have to turn your brain off whenever you see the snow. And do the whole tried and true method of just surrounding this with rocks, which in this case, it still looks really good because it does look like, you know, a sort of mountainy environment, which kind of fits. You know, that certainly fits. Okay, let's see how this looks. Look in, and oh my gosh, there's some Eutyrannuses down there. What do you mean the sign says Nanoxaurus? Those are not Nanoxaurus. They are Eutyrannus. Whoever made this enclosure must be a true idiot, because they don't know they're dinosaurs. They don't know the difference between a proceratosaurid and a tyrannosaurid. Well, man, what a bunch of dummies. Anyway, let's get back to work. Put up the cliff right there, right, like that. And then one thing I wanted to replicate was the little Troodon cave thing that existed. I don't know if I necessarily want to put Troodon in here. I mostly want the focus to be Eutyrannus, which ultimately, I don't know if you can call this a true recreation of Dinosauria, but you know, who knows? Maybe one day they will add Nanoxaurus. You know, who knows? But actually, the rocks that are present of the little cave are a little bit darker in their coloration. So it's a fairly simple cave. You're gonna have like this rock right here, kind of like that, I guess. And we get more rocks over here. And we get more back here. And then we get a roof on this cave, which I believe this will probably be a bit too small for our Eutyrannuses, but you know, it's just, I wanted the reference there. Now we finally get to use a different type of brush, that being the snow. So we'll place all of that in here. There's also a lot of like snowy type trees in the background, so I'll go ahead and include those in here as well. I also want to place some rocks like this. That way it looks like there's like some snow on top of these rocks, which I think looks pretty cool. Let's get some of these snowy trees in here, like that, kind of like on the outskirts. Enclosure. There we go. That's kind of cool. Although maybe too much snow is a bit too much, so maybe I can. Wise words, am I right? Too much snow is a bit too much. Man, I'll be here all day, guys. So what I could do is maybe just like a little bit of root riddled dirt. Also just try to make it look like, you know, animals are still walking around on here, so it's like that's, you know, you're losing some of the snow. Maybe some stuff for, yeah, since this is like a very enclosure looking enclosure, let's add some stuff for like enrichment, like a dead tree. Like maybe our keepers can like hide food in this tree that the Eutyrannuses can try to get. There we go. That's not half bad. I kind of like, this is a little bit crooked, so I'll fix that. But and actually, I should probably put a sign up here, similar to how, like, you know, the polar bear exhibit that, you know, was the inspiration for this actually has a sign. Maybe like concrete, and they have it as blue. I like blue, so we'll do that. Fits the style. Maybe right there, like this, kind of like that. And then I guess I can grab all of these logs. Let's move it to be a little bit more like this. Try to straighten it up a little bit. There we go. And then we could put like, I don't know, Nanoxaurus up here. Something like that. I don't really want to mess with the words right now, but maybe we could do that sometime in the future. We might as well try to dress this whole area up. Since we're kind of having like a colder animal, maybe we can like, oh yeah, you're moving into a colder environment. So, you know, the trees kind of reflect that. Try to dress it up. And then maybe we could put like other colder enclosures here. Like if I ever get the chance, that can be what this is all dedicated to. We'll have to keep that in mind. I don't know if that's what I'm going to do yet, but we'll keep it in mind. That's pretty cool though. I mean, yeah, I like it. I could see that being a real enclosure. So let's go ahead and grab these Eutyrannuses, make them look like the Nanoxaurs, and See how it all comes together. Fortunately, their base coloration is already kind of similar to what we're looking for. Like, really, I don't think we have to change much. Yeah, because that looks good. We'll only get 2 of them. Okay, let's take a look at our new creations. So first, oh no, I gotta fix that. But first we have Old Buck over here. You can just look across the water and look at that. You could just see a few styracosaurs just existing with their beautiful cherry blossom up there where the Old Buck triumphantly stands after defeating a rival, you know? That's pretty cool, though. I kind of like the way that this enclosure looks. I like all of the vegetation that's all kind of packed up here, and I especially like the water that separates you from the dinosaurs. It makes it feel like, you know, it's very naturalistic while also keeping that separation from, you know, everybody else. Look at that. We even have the Old Buck standing underneath the tree. Oh, perfect. We can pretty much recreate the actual thing. This is pretty cool. I'm pretty happy with how this one turned out. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and go over here, go back into first person view. Let's go and check out our beautiful Eutyrannuses, aka Nanoxaurs. So already this is a pretty cool entrance up here. Maybe if we had an enclosure somewhere along the path, it would, you know, it'd feel a lot less tedious to get up here. But I like the way that this looks. Again, it could probably use some more decorations as well, but it's really not terrible. That log needs to be adjusted, but again, we're getting there. And then you look in, and there we are. There are the, you know, quote unquote Nanoxaurs just walking around. They do, again, you know, they do represent Nanoxaurs from Dinosauria, our frozen past. I just thought this would have been a great opportunity to include Eutyrannus, whose design I absolutely love in this game, because look at that. Look how gorgeous that looks. And this is a pretty fine Eutyrannus enclosure, even if you're not like looking at it through the lens of Dinosauria. So I'm pretty happy with it. You know, I like it. Again, there's some improvements that need to be made, like mostly that log, but for the most part, I think it's pretty nice. So yeah, that is the end of today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have an awesome day, all right?